Hey there, it's Justine Buick, the NCLEX tutor, and today I'm going to be giving you my review on this book, Developing Clinical Judgment. And it's a book with case studies for the NCLEX Next Gen, and I'm going to be giving you my opinion if I think you should buy it or not to help you with your prep. So there's not a lot of resources out there yet for the NCLEX Next Gen type of questions. I know Saunders has been putting some questions out, and now this book from Elsevier has put questions out. And I'm still looking to see what else is going to be out there and to figure out what the best resource is. And this book was really the first book that I found that was extensive in their case studies and these types of questions. And what I found throughout this book is that, unfortunately, there's mistakes. And I know that the author is not going to want to hear that, but sometimes it really makes me wonder, are they actually going through this book with a detailed oriented mind? And I am, because I put myself in the shoes of the student, and I know how they feel when they're doing practice questions and something doesn't seem right about the rationale or the answers. And I would have to jump through some major hoops to explain why some of these answers are correct and some of them are incorrect. And I know that instructors have a tendency to think that the book is correct and that the student is wrong, and they will just go with whatever the rationale is in the book. And I want students and instructors to know that there are mistakes in these books. Every single resource that I have looked at has mistakes. And don't think you as the student are making a mistake. It's very likely that if you think you are correct, the book or whatever app or whatever resource you're using could possibly be wrong, a very likely chance that it might be wrong. All right, so some of the things that I like about this book is that it has a lot of case studies and it goes through all of the major topics with maternity, peds, pharmacology, adult health, management of care, and it also goes through a lot of the common disorders. Another thing is that it goes from simple case studies to very complex case studies. And that's good because it starts off simple and then gets a little bit more complex, and so that you can see how you are supposed to go through these case studies. In the beginning, it has the new clinical judgment model, and so that's actually replacing the nursing process. And it's very similar to the nursing process, but they explain it in a way that is pretty simplified and it's easy to understand. So that's good that they're talking about that, because that is their new model for nursing care and writing these practice questions. I also really like that there's a pharmacology section. The very last case study or chapter is a lot of meds. And so that's really helpful because I know students have a really hard time with medications. Now, some of the things that I didn't like about it is I found mistakes. So I pick an answer and then I go back in the rationale and it says that my answer is wrong when they list the answers, but then in the rationale, it might say that it's correct. So it would be nice if they could just get those typos fixed so that the student isn't feeling confused about if they picked the correct answer or not. Now, unfortunately, I can't show you the details in the book because it's copyrighted and I have to get permission to do that. But one of the things that I noticed is as you go through the case studies, it sometimes has a tendency to give you a question and it doesn't give you a lot of data in that question. So it almost assumes that from the previous question you got all your data. But I think each one of these questions are a standalone question and they should include everything you need to know in order to answer the question. Another thing I noticed is that when I went to the NCLEX conference, they said that the lab values would be included in the case studies. And so they don't include any normal lab values in these case studies. And so that is kind of annoying because you think, oh my gosh, am I supposed to memorize all of these labs? And at the conference, they said that they don't want students having to memorize all the labs because that's not really critical thinking to just memorize the lab. So they were going to give you the lab values in the case studies, but they don't do that in this book, so they should probably fix that. There's also some inconsistencies in the questions. So one question will say, highlight all of the assessment findings that are abnormal or that need follow-up. And so I highlight them, and the rationale will not include some pretty problematic assessment findings. And then in other rationales, they do include them. In one question it says to include it, and then in another question it says don't include it. So that can get really confusing for a student, and you can tell that multiple people wrote these questions and then it probably wasn't edited to be all very similar with the rationales and the types of questions. Also, it's good for you as the student, if you do decide to buy this book, that you don't take everything at face value. So if you find a mistake and you're not sure, ask someone. So either ask your professor or ask another student what they think. And remember, a lot of these questions, or all of these questions, they are not thoroughly tested to make sure that they're valid, legitimate questions and that there's no mistakes. So they're not looked over like that, like the real NCLEX questions would be. Overall though, I think it is a decent book. I definitely think it could be better. All right, you guys, thanks for watching. And if you come across any other resources that are talking about the NCLEX Next Gen and have case studies and you want me to look at it, just let me know. Also, what have you guys been hearing at school about the Next Gen? Are your teachers talking about it? I'm really curious, because they probably should, because if you're starting at nursing school now, you're probably going to be taking the NCLEX when it has those case studies throughout it. So thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.